Welcome to Rock City Cookies, where we talk about all things cookies. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. Thanks for watching. Hello, sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel, and this is Rock City Cookies. It's time for a new series. After I posted my video about how I made money with cookies, I'll be sure and link it up above. I've had a few emails and comments and messages asking me for some more details about how they can start selling cookies on Etsy. So I wanted to make a video series that outlines exactly how to do that. That way, if you are interested in setting up your own online shop to sell cookies, you will have a step-by-step tutorial to help you do it. The first video that I wanted to release in this series was simply to just answer some of the questions that I have received about selling on Etsy. So that's what I'm going to do here today. The next videos in this series will cover all sorts of topics like how to set up and create an Etsy, how to navigate the back office, how to set up listings, what wording do you use on those listings and in your shop, how in the world do you set up a booking calendar if you're selling online, what you are going to need to ship cookies, and I'll even walk you through what to do when you've made that first sale. So as you can see, we have a ton of things to talk about. So this is going to be a pretty big series, and I promise you I will make these videos as quickly as I can. Okay, friends, so let's get going on answering some of these frequently asked questions. Can anyone set up an Etsy shop? The answer is yes. You do not have to be incorporated or have an LLC to sell on Etsy. You can simply be a sole proprietor. No idea if I said that correctly. I don't feel like that's right, but we're gonna roll with it. You can just be a sole proprietor, which is what you are as a home baker, to sell on Etsy. Now, I do recommend that you look into becoming incorporated or getting an LLC for other reasons, but as far as setting up on Etsy, you do not have to have those things. Okay, question number 2. Do I have to have a commercial kitchen? Well, it depends. Etsy allows you to operate under your own state's laws. So in order to be in compliance with Etsy, you do have to follow your state's cottage food laws. So if you do not have to have a commercial kitchen to legally sell cookies in your state, then you do not have to have a commercial kitchen to sell on Etsy. So for me, I live in Arkansas, and Arkansas does not require me to have a commercial kitchen. So as a home baker, I can indeed sell on Etsy and be in compliance with Arkansas. Now, my own personal experience with Etsy is they pretty much leave you to run your business in the way that you see fit. They are not out there making sure that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's. That is not what Etsy does. As long as you follow the rules of Etsy, they're going to pretty much leave you alone. However, always operate under your state's laws, because you never know when they may audit you, or you may have some sort of problem with your business. You may have a lawsuit, you may have someone filing a complaint. Any of those things can be scary, and so you want to make sure that as far as you're concerned, you are following your state's laws so that you are taken care of in that aspect, because you never ever want to jeopardize this business that you're creating. So know those cottage food laws like the back of your hand and follow them, and when you sell on Etsy, you will be good to go. Now, I wanted to kind of give you a breakdown of my own state's cottage laws so that you can kind of understand what your state might require of you. As I mentioned, I live in Arkansas, and in Arkansas, we have the Arkansas Freedom Food Act. The Food Freedom Act does allow direct sales of homemade food products and drink products that do not require time or temperature controls without being processed in a certified and inspected kitchen. So I don't have a certified and inspected kitchen, but I can still sell my cookies because they are not required to be at anything but room temperature. You don't have to refrigerate them, you don't have to freeze them to keep them safe. So my food, cookies, does qualify under this Arkansas Freedom Food Act. Now, some other aspects of this law: home bakers can sell their food directly to consumers from their home and online platforms. So that online platform is Etsy. It can be your own website. It can be Facebook. It can be Instagram. It can be any sort of online platform. Legally in my state, I'm allowed to do that. So that is something that you definitely want to make sure is included in your cottage food laws, that you have permission to sell on online platforms. It also stipulates that as a home baker, I can deliver my product in person and through the mail. So again, you want to make sure that's also included in your cottage food laws, that you do have permission to deliver goods through the mail. They also allow me to be able to sell my product through a third-party vendor. That means I can go to farmers markets, I can go to grocery stores and have partnerships with them. I can go to a retail shop and have a partnership with them and allow them to legally sell my product. So that's not really something that you have to do for Etsy. It's just kind of good to know if your laws allow that or not. Now, the Arkansas Food Freedom Act does not cover liability, and I guarantee that most of your state's cottage food laws, whatever they're called, do not cover liability either. Which means if someone is injured in any way by consuming your product, you are not covered. So that is why I recommend getting an LLC, getting incorporated, one of those two things, and also buying insurance to protect yourself just in case the worst case scenario happens. The Food Freedom Act for Arkansas does require a few things, and this is important also to know if you're going to sell on Etsy. Here are the things that have to be included on a label of some sort, either in your product, it can be on the box of what you ship, it can be on the actual cookies themselves, it can be on a piece of paper that you include with your shipment. Honestly, I don't think there's a whole lot of stipulations on how you label the product. This is just something that has to be included to stay in compliance with the laws. So Arkansas requires that you include with your label the date the product was made, the name, address, and telephone number of the person who made it. Now, I know that most of us are very concerned about that fact, and your state may not require that. I know that in some states, people are pushing for that to be changed because they feel unsafe providing that information to anyone who consumes their product. I mean, these are our actual homes. It's not like we're able to give a brick and mortar or a P.O. box. Like, this is our actual physical residence where we reside with our families, and it is scary to give that information out to who knows who. So Arkansas has provided a way that you can safely follow the law without having to provide that. And you can go online and apply, and I think it's the Department of Agriculture, and they will give you a special number that you can include instead of all of your information. So instead of including your name, your phone number, your address, you would just write out that special ID number that they give you. So the first thing that had to be included was the date it was made. The second thing is your information. The third thing is just the name of the product, and it can be the most common name. So in this situation, it's a sugar cookie. The fourth thing that has to be included is the list of your ingredients. And just like on any sort of label, you're supposed to put the highest ingredient first and list them in descending order. I think that's correct. So basically for us as sugar cookie makers, our biggest ingredient should be flour, and then you would list the next biggest, which is probably your sugar, then your eggs, your butter, and so forth, on down to like your salt and your baking powder or your flavoring. All of those things that have the least amount will be listed last. All right, the fifth thing that has to be included, and I'm actually going to read this so that I get it worded correctly. In Arkansas, and I figure this is probably the case for most states, is it does have to say this product was produced in a private residence that is exempt from state licensing and inspection. This product may contain allergens. So I don't know if your state requires that exact wording, but like it does, it says put this on it. Put this on your product. So Arkansas gives you exactly what to say. So you can look for the wording yourself in your state, but thankfully we have it provided. We don't have to question. This is exactly what you need to include on your label. So that's all that has to be included on your label. So again, it has to be the date it was made. It has to be your information. It has to be the ingredients listed. It has to be what product it is, what is it called, and it has to have that special statement that says it's not a commercial kitchen, and there are allergens. I think I got them all. Okay, so where do you put this label to stay in compliance? Well, here in Arkansas, they just say that you have to include it in your product. So that can be labeling directly onto your product. It can be included on the box that contains the product. It can be included as an information sheet that you include with the product. It just has to be affixed either to the packaging or the product. For products that are sold online, so in this case, Etsy is online. So for products that are sold online, it's twofold. You have to include all of that information on the website that you are selling your product with, and two, on the package itself. Your Etsy website has your information on it. So I'll talk about this again later, but really in the description of your product, you don't have to put your personal information there because that's included on your website, which is Etsy, but you do have to include the other things in your description box, which will be on every listing. So it's really not difficult. You will copy and paste all of that, and I will help you with that later, but know that you will have to include it in your description of your listings on Etsy. And you're just really going to have to make sure that you get in the habit of including that when you ship. Now, when I sold on Etsy, I did that in two ways. So I included it on the label of the box, which is just when they open up the box, it was right there. So I put my label there, and I got those big labels that you can fit a lot of information on, and I had really tiny print, and I just put my label there. And then I also put my label on the receipt that I would include. So again, you'll get to this later, but Etsy gives you a receipt that you can include in your package. If you've ever received a cutter or anything from Etsy, then you should know that you get those in your packages normally. So that receipt, I would stick that label on there as well. So I included it 2 places. Now, you don't have to, but that was just overkill. I was just making sure that I had all of that out there, especially because allergen issues are such a big deal and it really can cause harm to someone. So I wanted to make sure that if somebody was serving cookies to kids, they knew exactly where to look to find that information. All right, that was a long rant about cottage food laws, but it's definitely important that you know your cottage food laws. So before you do anything, before you start really digging into opening an Etsy, read through those laws. You can Google your state and then cottage food laws, and you should have a ton of resources pull up. Okay, that was a long way to answer it, but there you go. There's how you can sell legally on Etsy. Just follow your state's laws. Okay, now question number 3. Can you really make money selling on Etsy? Yes. I really did turn profit when I was selling on Etsy. And I'll be honest with you, as a home baker and just taking local orders, I didn't make much of a profit, especially given how much time it took to make those cookies. And as I mentioned in my video where I talked about money, when you are only taking local orders, you are very much limited by how much the community around you is willing to pay for those cookies. And sometimes that's not a lot. So Etsy gave me the freedom to charge more for my cookies, which meant that I didn't have to make a ton more cookies in order to make more profit. It didn't mean I was having to take all these extra orders or just suddenly magically become twice as fast at what I was doing. I was able to actually make more money and work less because I didn't have to take as many orders to make the amount of money that I made on Etsy. So when I broke it down, it actually was like 4 times the amount of profit I made when I switched to selling on Etsy than when I did just local orders alone. Now, can I guarantee that for you? No, absolutely not. I can't. I'm just telling you from my experience, was it worth it? Did I make money? Yeah, I did. But there is one thing I do want to mention, and I know I keep saying this, I will talk about this further in my series when we talk about shipping costs and how to ship and all the things that you're going to need with that. But even though my profits did increase, my expenses increased as well. When you start shipping the majority of your cookies, you have to stock a lot of things that you may not have had to stock before. You are going to have to invest in shipping boxes, in good shipping boxes. You're going to have to invest in bubble wrap. You're going to have to invest in shipping tape. There's just a lot of things that you are going to have to invest with Etsy just in order to ship your cookies. But even with that extra money going out the door for those things, I still was making way more profit being a seller on Etsy than I was just with local orders. And also I should mention, when mentioning that even though my profits increased, my expenses increased, I also do want to say that I will teach you a way that you can recoup some of that cost when it comes to all the extra costs of your boxes, your bubble wrap, all of that you have to do. I was able to recoup that a little bit, and I'll show you that later. So keep that in mind. It's not going to completely come out of pocket, but you can help offset that a little bit. I realize I'm talking a lot with my hands, and I'm sorry if that's annoying. But even if you can't see me using my hands when I'm talking right now, like my hands are underneath the table and they're like flailing wildly. So it sometimes ends up here. A lot of times it's underneath, so you can't see what's going on, but I cannot. It's impossible for me to record these videos without moving my hands like crazy. Sorry. Okay, let's move on to the fourth frequently asked question, and that is, how do you manage a calendar with selling on Etsy? And I think this is a super important question because your booking calendar dictates your entire life. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it's not. Like, I lived and died by my calendar with cookies, for better or worse. So I will explain to you exactly how I maintained my calendar in a future video. In fact, it'll probably be a video by itself. So I will explain this in full detail later, but I did want to let you know it can be done. When I sold on Etsy, I also took a very limited amount of local orders as well. So I definitely had to have a very strict calendar that dictated what orders I could fulfill. So stay tuned for that video where I go into detail. I will show you my calendar. I will show you exactly how I booked it and things that you can do inside of Etsy to help protect yourself and your sanity. All right, frequently asked question number 5. How do taxes work on Etsy? Now, I know a lot of this video is some of the boring stuff, but it really does matter. And so I wanted to include it first and foremost so that you had kind of an idea of the really important boring stuff first before I went into detail about all the steps it takes to open Etsy. So taxes, I know, boring, snooze, nobody likes to talk about taxes. And first and foremost, I am not an accountant, so please, I highly recommend that you seek the advice from an accountant first before just listening to little old Rachel. And if you have any questions regarding federal or state taxes, definitely seek the help of a professional. I'm not going to be able to answer that for you, nor would I, because I don't want you to sue me. I will say this: if you sell cookies, you must pay taxes on your income. I think we all know that, but I wanted to make sure that it was said. Now, that income, which is why it's so important to have an accountant, that income whenever you own your own business is usually the amount of money that came in minus the business expenses. Etsy does not do that for you, but Etsy does report your gross income on a 1099. But even if you don't get a 1099, you still must report your income on your taxes. Now, there is a sales tax that Etsy does take care of. So when you go to a store, you have to pay sales tax, right? When you buy something, you have to pay sales tax. Well, the same is true for Etsy and people who buy your cookies. Different states require different taxes. And guess what? You don't have to know any of that at all. Etsy 100% takes care of that for you. So when someone purchases cookies from you, Etsy will charge them the correct sales tax, and then Etsy will send that sales tax to the corresponding state that they live in. So don't worry about that. Etsy does it. It will never hit your bank account. They literally charge the customer. It goes straight to them and they file it. So you do not have to worry about sales tax, but you will see it when people purchase your products. So that is one good news. Don't worry about the sales tax, but you will have to report your income because Etsy does not take care of the taxes for you when it comes to your own personal income. All right, moving on from the boring tax stuff. Frequently asked question number 6. How does Etsy pay you for your sales? So Etsy does direct deposit any of your sales directly into your bank account. So when you go to set up your Etsy page, and again, I'll walk you through that later, when you go to set up that Etsy page, it will ask for a checking number and a routing number. So you will have to provide that to Etsy, and then they will directly deposit that money into your account as you earn it. Now, they have payment schedules where you can actually schedule how often you want those payments payments to hit your account. They have it where you can do it once every month, you can do it once every 2 weeks, you can do it once a week, or you can have it daily. Now, I personally prefer daily because I like to have my money that I earned as soon as I can get it. However, there is a caveat to that. Do not expect to make a sale on Etsy and get the money the very next day. Not how it works. There is a processing time that happens. Once you make a sale, they hold it for a little while, make sure it clears the person's bank account. It goes through all sorts of whatever processing that Etsy requires of any sale, and then you'll see it hit your bank account. So the very next day, once that all the funds are cleared, the very next day it'll hit your bank account. But technically that could be a week later. And I usually find that's about the case. I usually get the funds for a sale almost a week later. I mean, maybe I have gotten it after a few days, but it's probably rare. I usually don't expect to see any of the money that I've made until about a week. If you don't have that everyday feature on, it could take a week to process all of those funds. And then let's say you have every week chosen that you want to deposit every week. Well, let's say Monday's that day that it deposits and it cleared on Tuesday, then technically it's like you're waiting 2 weeks to get paid. Does that make sense? So I actually recommend that you do the daily feature just so that when those funds are available, they hit your account right away. Otherwise, you might have additional waiting time. If it was the day after you had every 2 weeks that you were supposed to get your funds were ready, then you technically could wait up to a month to get it. If the funds became available right the day after your monthly deposit, well, then you might have to wait, the whole next month. So that could be almost 2 months since you made your money. So there may be some benefits to waiting and doing the other features. I just know for me personally, I want my money. I earned it. I made it. I want it in my account as soon as possible. So that's why I choose the daily feature. Now, what is deposited in your bank account is going to be less than your actual sale. Why? Well, because Etsy loves their fees and they will collect those fees before they pay you. So let's talk about that next. Frequently asked question number 7. What fees does Etsy have? Sadly, Etsy does have several ways it takes a cut from you. The first way that you will notice immediately upon setting up your Etsy shop is that every listing you make cost 20 cents. So I kind of like to think of it as a hosting fee almost. So basically, if you have a website, you have to pay a hosting fee to have that website every month. I kind of feel like this is Etsy's workaround with that. So instead of making you pay hosting fees to have your shop on Etsy where you can sell this online platform, I think for me, I kind of see it as they get that hosting fee by charging 20 cents per listing. And it doesn't matter what your listing is. Everyone, all of Etsy is charged 20 cents for every single listing. I can sell a cookie cutter, 20 cents. I can sell 2 dozen cookies for $190, 20 cents. So basically, it's just a fee that you can't get around, and they're going to charge you as soon as you put up that Etsy listing, so that even if you never sell that product, if you never make a sale on it, Etsy is still getting a cut from you. So that fee is charged up front. And another bad thing about Etsy, another fee that they do, is that listing actually expires after 4 months. So if you have not sold that listing after 4 months, it's going to charge you again another 20 cents to keep that listing up every 4 months. So basically, you may be charged multiple times if you haven't sold whatever you're listing in that amount of time. You might be charged multiple times just to keep that listing up. So again, apples to apples, apples to oranges. I don't know. I feel like if you have a website, you're going to pay a hosting fee. If you're going to sell things on that website, your hosting fee is going to be even larger. And then they typically have transaction fees as well. So to me, I mean, even though a lot of people prefer to have their own website and have control and keep as much money in their pocket as they can, when it comes down to it, I don't really know that you're spending that much more in these listing fees than you would to have to maintain and pay all the fees of hosting your own website. And with Etsy, you have a trusted page. So for me, it was always worth it to sell on Etsy. It still is worth it. We still sell cookie cutters on Etsy. It's worth it for us because Etsy is such a trusted website that people don't hesitate to go there and purchase. They don't worry about their payments. They usually all have logins, and even if they don't, you can easily check out as a guest. So for me, there's a toss-up. I mean, I'm not really sure what you pay more for, Etsy or a website, but I just prefer Etsy because it has so many ways that I can be found easily in their search, how they can bump me and try to get me exposed. I don't have that necessarily in my own website. So that's why I chose Etsy. Do what's best for you. You can experiment and see what works best. But for me, that's why I chose Etsy. I don't know. Okay, I went on a tangent, but basically Etsy has the 20-cent listing fees, and then they also have a transaction fee. So of course, Etsy's not only going to take a cut at the beginning, they're also going to take a cut at the end as well. So when you sell something on Etsy, they take a 5% transaction fee. That is not just on the product itself. So for instance, if you're selling a dozen cookies for $75 on Etsy, they don't just take 5% of that. They also include your product that you sold. If you offer any gift wrapping or any additional charges in your Etsy page, I never did that, but if you do have any additional charges, that gets lumped in as well. And they bought shipping, which of course they're going to buy shipping. That's what the whole platform's about, right? Buying things and having them shipped to you. So the shipping cost is included as well before they take the 5% cut. Personally, I think it's a little sneaky because as creators, as producers on Etsy, we aren't pocketing that shipping money at all. It's going straight from us back to Etsy, back to the postal service to be able to buy that shipping. So it seems a little skeezy that they take that lump sum into account before they deduct the 5%. But by doing so, that's how they make more money off of you, because your total is going to be higher, which makes their 5% cut higher. I'll break it down like this. Okay, so to have like a real world example, again, you have that dozen that you sold that was $75. For me, shipping was anywhere from $10 to $20 whenever I was shipping cookies. It kind of depended on how much they bought, as well as where it was going. Again, I will have an entire video that talks about shipping. However, the average cost, I would say, would be about $15. So you sold a set for $75, your shipping cost was $15. So that makes your total $90. Now, that $90 is what would hit your account if Etsy didn't take any fees. 5% of that $90 is $4.50. So right there, you're taking a cut to your profit. And if you add the 20 cents that the listing costs you to post, then that means $4.70 straight off the top, goodbye profit from that $75 dozen. So now you're down to that dozen really being $70.30, which if you divide that $70.30 by a dozen cookies, do you see that your price actually goes down? So I think it's really important that you include that mentality. Think about that 5%, how much you will have taken off the top of whatever you sell right away when you decide what to price your cookies. So please do not, no matter what, go on Etsy and charge the same that you would charge in person, because your costs are going to be higher. So I figure most of you are going on to Etsy thinking about that, trying to increase your profits anyway and charge more than you would locally. But I do see a few cookiers on Etsy who charge $3 a cookie, and it's still $36 a dozen, $45 a dozen, something along those lines for cookies on Etsy. And truthfully, I don't know how or why they do it if they're only going to charge that little, because it's not worth it in my opinion. I think Etsy charges you too much fees. It's a lot more work with shipping, to have to do all of that shipping, all of, I don't know, the hosting and all of that. It just seems like way too much work if you're not going to really charge your worth on there. So that's just my 2 cents. I definitely think that you should be charging way more on Etsy than you are charging in your personal life. And again, you're not married to the prices that you choose, but I definitely think when you start out, personal opinion, but I really think that you should shoot for the stars. If you have to pull back some because you're not making any sales, feel free, pull back. But I think that you should at least charge significantly more than you do in person to make it worth it for all the extra work that you have to do to sell on Etsy. Okay, sorry. I keep going on these tangents. See, this is why this series is going to have to be a zillion videos, is because I can't keep focused. It's like I have all of this information just spinning in my head, and you guys are the only people that care about this information. So it's like I just want to vomit on all of you because nobody else cares. Who else am I going to talk to about this? Okay, so here we go. Last question, frequently asked question number 8. I've never shipped cookies before. Can I do this? Don't worry, I've got you covered. So I will have an entire video. Again, go figure, I've said that a million times this video, but I will have a whole video in this series that explains shipping, all about how to ship, what to expect, what that looks like whenever you're shipping in an online forum where people have dates that have to be met. What do I need? Is this gonna kill me? All of those questions I will answer in a video coming soon. All right, this video is, I don't even know how long I've been talking. It's forever long. However, I'm sure you probably still have more questions. So please feel free to comment your questions. Let me know if you have any more concerns, because as I'm doing these videos, I will include your question. I will answer your question. I will make sure that you have some sort of feedback included. So I want to know if you have any questions, if there's anything specifically that you feel like you want to see, let me know. And I'm gonna wrap it up by saying this. I know this whole process is very overwhelming. I thought about selling on Etsy for a long time before I did, because it's scary. It's this new platform. It's all these things that you have to learn and do whenever you're already learning this new craft. And sometimes perfecting your craft if you've been doing cookies for a long time. So it's just one more thing, one more step. And sometimes that can just be exhausting and overwhelming. So I want you to know I've been there. I was there. I totally get it. But I promise to you, you can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. So just follow my step-by-step tutorials that I'm going to be providing, and you can change your business. Instead of having to charge $45 a dozen, you can charge $75, $85, $95, $105 a dozen, like I did. So this next video that I will be creating will be step-by-step how to actually set up that Etsy shop. Now, don't worry, you're not gonna start selling your stuff right away, but there is an element of setting up an Etsy shop. I swear I started to set up my Etsy shop 10 times before I actually did, just because it is kind of involved that first time that you set it up, and I didn't know what I was doing. I will have an entire video that is just straight up how to set up your Etsy shop, and then in the next video, we'll start talking about how to build your shop. Okay, sweet friends, first video in the series is done, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.